Alright, what's going on? This video is going to be a bit different than my normal video. I'm not going to be running through shit from my collection or anything like that. I'm going to be talking about one album specifically, and I actually don't think I've done a video like this since the last time I talked about a Cattle Decapitation full-length album at length, and that was back in 2015. It's crazy for me to think where I was then and how much shit has changed for me. I mean, since that fucking album came out, I've moved to Kentucky, I bought a house, I'm now on my second marriage. So it's crazy. It feels for me like a long time since a Cattle Decapitation album has come out. And it has been. In fact, it's been the longest gap between full-length albums that we've ever seen from Cattle Decapitation. For me, I've been a big Cattle Decapitation fan for about 11 years. So it's, you know, I've seen the change that this band has made. I've seen them make the transition from Karma Bloody Karma to the Harvest Floor, and of course, you know, retrospectively, I've seen the changes that they made in between each album. Cattle Decapitation has never been a band to keep a sound for very long, because in 2019 we finally get the 8th full-length album from Cattle Decapitation entitled Death Atlas. And I just got this in the mail. I've been waiting on this before I actually made this video, and I was kind of on the fence until today whether or not it was going to happen at all. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that I have a lot to say about this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the contents of this first, and then I'll talk about it. So as you can see, I got the deluxe wooden box set because I'm a huge fucking Cattle Decapitation fan, if you can't tell. So, you know, being that there was a big wooden box set, I thought it was pretty cool. So I'll show you what this comes with. And so nobody's confused, I have already opened this. I've looked at all of it. I even already have the pin on my jacket and shit. Right off the bat, you have a back patch. And I actually like this piece of art probably more than any other piece of art associated with this full-length album. You get a poster, which I will, I guess, unfold for you ungrateful fucks. On one side of this poster, what the fuck? On one side of the poster you get the album cover. On the other side you get this sort of hourglass scythe Ouroboros thing that you have on the front of this box set. I'm not really a fan of the album cover, to be completely honest, and I don't hang up fucking square posters anyways because they're a nightmare to find frames for. Next you get this 7-inch. I only have one other shaped disc in my collection, and it's a midnight shaped disc. I think it's called, what's that EP called? Like Shocks of Violence or something? There's the back right there. This is 2 bonus songs. The first song is called An Extreme Indifference to Human Life, and the second song is In the Kingdom of the Blind, the One-Eyed Are Kings, which is a Dead Can Dance cover, but we'll talk about that. And then on my jacket, it kind of fit the spot really nicely, is like a metal pin of kind of like the album cover, which is cool. And then you get the CD, which I haven't opened yet, and the 12-inch LP. So here's a better look right here at the album cover. Of course, it's kind of like a take on Atlas, you know, hence the name of the album, I guess. To be honest, I don't exactly love the name of the album, and I don't love the album cover either. In terms of a title, I kind of just wish they went with the Geo side, because I don't know, it's more fitting with the lyrical content of every fucking song on this album. So there's the front cover. Back cover right there, all the track titles and shit like that. You got your gatefold cover right there, which is really nice looking actually. You get a download code if anybody wants it. There you go. Since I have the CD and a laptop, I can just put it on my iPod. Then you get a lyric sheet, all the lyrics of course, and just some thanks and credits and shit like that. I think there's thanks on here, yeah. But I like what they did with like the band members photos, kind of cool. This is a double LP. And the version that came with the box set was like this gold version. So first things first, there has been a lineup change. Of course, Derek, who played on Monolith of Inhumanity and the Anthropocene Extinction, he left the band, I think last year, and honestly I don't remember if anybody ever said why. My assumption has always been that there was just sort of some conflicting interests with Derek's other bands, with like Phil Anselmo or whatever the fuck. So you have the addition of a second guitarist as well as a new bassist, and the guy who's doing bass now also does bass for Cryptopsy, which is pretty cool. I can't tell if it has anything to do with the addition of these new members, which I'm leaning against, or maybe it's just sort of the direction that this band has naturally been going in over the course of the last 3 albums. But Death Atlas is a very different record from the Anthropocene extinction. And if you guys remember, back in 2015 when I made a video about the Anthropocene extinction, the thing that I had mentioned in that video is that it was literally like a copy and paste of Monolith of Inhumanity, which wouldn't normally be a problem, but the Anthropocene extinction for me falls off about halfway through the album and doesn't really pick up again. Like, if you asked me what songs I like the most from the Anthropocene extinction, it would kind of be in the first 5 tracks. After that, my knowledge of the lyrics gets a bit spotty, and I just don't know the songs quite as well. I don't know if that's because the album didn't keep my attention for the whole thing, or maybe it was just that they just so happened to put the good songs up front. I don't know. And in my opinion, Monolith of Inhumanity was a pivotal point for this band, and I don't even think that's my opinion. I think that that's just fact. Monolith of Inhumanity catapulted Cattle Decapitation into a different league that they never would have reached with the sound that they had on previous albums, Humanure, The Harvest Floor, Karma Bloody Karma. So for a band like Cattle Decapitation to have reached this level of success, they needed the change that Monolith of Inhumanity brought. Unfortunately, in my opinion, it kind of seems like Cattle Decapitation is beginning to suffer from, It seems like Cattle Decapitation is beginning to suffer from the same thing that I think plagued the band Death. Because Cattle Decapitation is way more popular now, and Death reached a new level of success when they started releasing the more progressive death metal albums. That's what Cattle Decapitation is doing. And as all you guys know, for me, the band Death falls off after Spiritual Healing, and they just start getting more and more progressive. And on Death Atlas, that is what Cattle Decapitation has done. On one hand, I'm grateful that Cattle Decapitation didn't just write Monolith of Inhumanity Part 3. On the other hand, it's very apparent that they're moving in a direction where they will eventually lose me. But Death Atlas, in my opinion, is a lot better than the Anthropocene extinction. Death Atlas keeps my attention all the way through, and to be honest, it's probably the quickest 55 minutes I can spend. Which is another thing about this album, it's way longer than any other Cattle Decapitation record has been so far. And I think that undeniably this album has a sort of epic, grand finale feeling to it. And in a way it is. It's sort of the end of like a trilogy of records. Assuming that it's just going to be a trilogy, of course. You know, there's sort of been like an elemental thing that's existed within these Cattle Decapitation records over the last, what, 7 years? Monolith of Inhumanity being themed around Earth, and Anthropocene Extinction sort of being themed around water, and now Death Atlas here themed around fire. The logical conclusion to that would be like, this is the end of a trilogy. So let's talk about Death Atlas a little bit. Musically, the brutality is basically gone. There are moments on this album where the Cattle Decapitation of old will sort of peek its head out and say what's up, but for the most part, this is very different. Musically, it's a lot more melancholic and almost black metal-y at parts. And I would say, in fact, very black metal-y at parts. Like the opening to the song Death Atlas, the black metal influence there, for me, is very, very apparent. But like I said, the brutality is sort of been traded off for this sort of more melancholic black metal-y sound. Now, for a lot of people, that's a problem. For me, it's not a problem. I don't need Cattle Decapitation to be a very heavy, brutal band, though I probably prefer it. I actually really, really like this sort of melancholic, like emotive take on this style of music that they've done here. But the brutal moments are still there. It's on the song Vulturous, it's on the song Finish Them. And yeah, you could argue that it's, you know, it's Cattle Decapitation, it should be like something that happens on every song, but that hasn't been happening for a long time, I think. It's just strange to me because people have taken a very hard stance against this album. The people in like the circle of guys that I know and follow, so many of them have taken this very hard anti-Death Atlas stance, when I don't think it's warranted. Because it's not like Cattle Decapitation has been the same band for more than one album. The Anthropocene Extinction is the only exception. You can't deny that To Serve Man is fucking way different than Homivore. You can't deny that Humanure is way fucking different than To Serve Man. And down the list we go until we get to Death Atlas. Maybe they are moving in a direction that I'm unsure of and that these guys are unsure of, and I totally get that. This album really hasn't done anything to convince me that Cattle Decapitation is not moving in a bit of a strange direction, but I think that I might just be a Cattle Decapitation fan who probably will like most of whatever they do in the future. And to be completely honest with you, the only reason that I sort of take umbrage with anything Cattle Decapitation has been doing over the last few years, honestly, it's the vocals. Which leads me into kind of the biggest thing that people take issue with on this album. We all know that Cattle Decapitation does something vocally that attracts a whole bunch of people who before were just never fans. Those sort of weird, cleanish, melodic vocals that Travis Ryan is undoubtedly known for at this point. I don't know if it's because of those vocals or the music that accompanies it, maybe it's everything put together, but the more that Travis Ryan seems to do those vocals, the more people like leeches latch on to Cattle Decapitation. And I'm with all of these guys who I sort of follow when I say that I prefer less of it, because there's not a song on this album that does not use those sort of weird, melodic, cleanish vocals. With the exception of the bonus track on the 7-inch, which is called An Extreme Indifference to Human Life. Sorry for the angle change, this is a bit of an afterthought. And of the two bonus songs, the song An Extreme Indifference to Human Life is probably one of my favorites associated with this release. And then there's the B-side of that, which is In the Kingdom of the Blind, the One-Eyed Are Kings. I don't really know much about Dead Can Dance, but I have a really bad feeling that that track is a massive red flag just sort of waving in the faces of the Cattle Decapitation fans who really don't want this change to keep in the direction that it's going. Their cover of that song is entirely clean vocals, with like female vocals as well. And that for me is, I think, very telling of the sort of direction that this band wants to go in. Because it's easy to sort of write off like a B-side on a bonus 7-inch as being like, we were just fucking around, but like that is the direction that this band is heading in. That is just on the extreme end. Any of you guys who have been complaining about this Cattle Decapitation album, if you heard that, I think you'd have a reason to complain. So maybe it was just the band paying homage to a band that they all have like a mutual respect for, and they just wanted to do a song like that justice without making it like an extreme metal song, but it is not an extreme metal song. And I think that that is a sort of look into the future of this band, unfortunately. Besides that, every song on this album has a sort of clean sung chorus. And at this point, it's edging towards being like, there's no more plausible deniability here. Like, he is singing. And unapologetically on the last song, Death Atlas, he literally sounds like Peter Steele. And, you know, that to me is not necessarily a problem. The problem is that on a lot of these songs, some of these songs are probably like half clean vocals. Songs like the Geoside, Bring Back the Plague, One Day Closer to the End of the World, like those songs I would say are probably around 50% clean vocals. But see, that's where I almost reach this conflict in my head, because to me it doesn't really feel like it. It doesn't feel, to me, as forced as a lot of people like to seem to make it out to be. I mean, it's not like Cattle Decapitation is doing anything weird by kind of doing like verse, chorus, like most bands do that. And the sort of cleaner vocals on this album don't sound quite as punchy as they did on Monolith of Inhumanity. Even somebody who likes this album more than Monolith of Inhumanity, you cannot look me in the eye and tell me that those vocals on Death Atlas do not sound way quieter, way more distant in the mix. Like, those choruses on the Monolith of Inhumanity tracks came off as fucking statements. On this album, it does feel like more of a formula. I do agree that on Monolith, the cleaner vocals were far more impactful, without fucking doubt. But on this album, I feel like it works. But I will say that those sort of cleaner vocals on this album kind of sounds like Travis Ryan doing an impression of himself. Or maybe it's more of like somebody else doing a Travis Ryan impression. It just doesn't sound the same. They sound a lot cleaner, which I said earlier, but also they sound a lot more exaggerated and cartoonish. And again, for me, it's not necessarily a bad thing because I do like them. And I also feel like there are different types of those vocals on this album which have never existed before. Like the sort of chorus on the song Absolute Destitute. Yeah, I would say that that's quite a bit different than like the chorus on Bring Back the Plague, for example. But I don't think it's a problem. I like it. And then there's the lyrics. The lyrics to this album are probably, for me, the most unfortunate thing here. And my reason for saying that is every song on this album is about the same thing. Every song on this album is about the sort of fucking of Earth, the downfall of man, extinction is coming, the world is ending. That's every song on this album. Now there's a couple songs on this album where it's presented a bit more creatively, I guess, like Bring Back the Plague. But even in the song title, you can tell it's about the sort of desire for the end of the world. The lyrics themselves, I like them for the most part. It's just unfortunate that every song is sort of about the same thing. Like, there is no projectile ovulation on this album, which is literally about like weaponizing pussy juices. Even on the Anthropocene Extinction, there was like Not Suitable for Life, which from what I remember was about social media, or the song Circo Inhumanitas, which is about the circus industry and how fucking terrible that is. Like, they're sort of like these one-off ideas for a song, where this album sort of is like one big idea separated into 13 songs. I love this album. Like I said, I like it a lot more than the Anthropocene Extinction. This is easily one of my favorite things that's come out this year. I just thought I would take a sort of critical look at Cattle Decapitation and the direction that they are moving in. And in conclusion, I kind of just feel like people's problem with this album is that maybe it feels like a bit of a betrayal. Maybe it feels like Cattle Decapitation is sort of fucking over the fans who have been around for a long time in favor of these kids who just want more and more of those like clean melodic vocals, and Cattle Decapitation is pandering to those people a bit. So I don't know, go start a fucking hashtag Not My Cattle Decapitation or something like that. I fucking love this album. I think it's fantastic. Favorite songs on this one would definitely be Bring Back the Plague. Finish Them might be my favorite song. I would say it's between Finish Them and Be Still Our Bleeding Hearts. That part after the second chorus in Be Still Our Bleeding Hearts, where those like really super high retches come in, fucking nasty. But yeah, I thought I would do something a little bit different and kind of talk about this album, because a lot of people have asked me what I've thought about it. So instead of replying to everybody one by one, I figured I would just make a video, edit it. I'll try and have this up tomorrow morning. And yeah, so that's my take on it. What do you guys think? Do you love it or do you hate it? Because it seems to me like that's kind of the only opinions you're allowed to have about this one. But if you have something a bit more insightful to say, I'm always down to read it. So yeah, thanks for sticking through this one. I have no idea if this is going to be a good video or not. I've never done something quite like this. So hope you enjoyed it. If not, sorry. Talk to you soon. Later.